Have you ever imagined a secret so dark that it would cost a man of faith his life? In the heart of a small town, a respected pastor is found dead, and all clues point to a love triangle involving the mayor's wife. But the truth behind this mystery remains in the shadows. Subscribe to the channel and follow this intriguing story. Harmony Springs is one of those small towns where time seems to stand still. With its tree-lined streets, wooden houses with welcoming balconies, and a church in the center, the city exudes an air of tranquility and togetherness. Residents know each other by name, and any news, no matter how small, quickly spreads like a whispering wind. The church is the beating heart of this community, and its pastor, Samuel, is the soul that keeps everyone's faith and hope intact. Pastor Samuel is a man respected by all, a figure of comfort and guidance in a city where morals and Christian values are the pillars that support everyday life. He is seen as a spiritual guide, someone you can turn to in times of doubt or need. With his powerful sermons and serene presence, Samuel earned the respect of young and old, men and women. However, behind his impeccable image, there is a reality that few know. His marriage to Grace, an equally devout woman, is in crisis. Conversations that once flowed freely are now replaced by heavy silences, and the tension between them is palpable, even if it is disguised by polite smiles. At City Hall, Robert Calloway exercises his power with firmness and charisma. Mayor of Harmony Springs for nearly a decade, he is seen as a fair leader, someone who cares about the well-being of all citizens. His imposing presence and articulate words make him a central figure in the city. However, the sparkle in his eyes seems to have faded over the years, replaced by a shadow of worry and tiredness. Robert is married to Evelyn, a woman whose beauty and elegance have always attracted everyone's attention. With blonde hair that cascades over her shoulders and a smile that can light up any room, Evelyn is often the center of attention at social events, and her presence is always striking. Evelyn, in turn, is an intriguing figure. She is the embodiment of charm and sophistication, but there is something about her that arouses curiosity and, at times, distrust. She is adored by some, envied by others, but respected by all. However, those who observe her closely notice that there is a certain melancholy in her eyes, a reflection of a life that is not as perfect as it seems. Rumors about her and Robert's relationship begin to circulate, fueled by furtive glances and moments of awkward silence at public events. Marriage, which was once seen as an example to be followed, is now the subject of whispers and speculation. In the small town of Harmony Springs, where appearances are as important as reality, the dynamics between these three figures begin to attract everyone's attention. Sunday church gatherings, which were once moments of devotion and community, are now marked by curious glances and hushed conversations. The city's women, who have always admired Evelyn for her impeccable posture and refined taste, begin to question what really goes on behind the closed doors of City Hall. The closeness between Evelyn and Pastor Samuel becomes a recurring topic in conversation circles. At first, they were just coincidences. A visit by Evelyn to the church outside of Mass times, a chance meeting at the market, a longer than usual conversation when leaving an event. However, as these encounters become more frequent, the rumors gain strength. Some say that Evelyn seeks the comfort in the pastor that she no longer finds in her marriage. Others suggest that Samuel, in the midst of his marital crisis, also sees in Evelyn a kind of refuge. These rumors begin to erode Samuel's untouchable image and Evelyn's reputation. In the minds of the residents of Harmony Springs, a web of secrets and suspicions begins to form, involving the pastor, the mayor and his wife in a plot that no one can completely decipher. The tension in the city grows silently, Like a storm brewing on the horizon, what was once just a spark now threatens to turn into a fire that could consume not only the reputations involved, but also the very peace that Harmony Springs holds dear. Evelyn, aware of the looks and whispers around her, tries to maintain her posture, but inside, she feels increasingly pressured. She wonders how far these rumors can go, and what they could mean for her and her husband. Pastor Samuel, in turn, feels the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. He knows that his closeness to Evelyn is being misinterpreted, but he also knows that he can't just walk away from her, as that could confirm the other suspicions. Mayor Robert, although aware of the gossip, chooses to ignore it, at least publicly. He believes that, as always, the rumors will dissipate over time. But deep inside, he feels something is out of place, something that may be beyond his control. The tranquility he fought so hard to maintain in the city and in his personal life seems to be slipping through his fingers. Thus, Little Harmony Springs, with its quiet streets and seemingly peaceful residents, finds itself at the center of a plot that threatens to expose the darkest secrets of those who should be its pillars of virtue and leadership. And as the days pass, the tension rises, setting the stage for events that no one could predict, but that everyone, in some way, feels are about to happen. What began as a normal routine of preaching and counseling soon turned into a silent nightmare for Pastor Samuel. In recent weeks, he had been feeling more tired than usual, a tiredness that was not just physical, but that seemed to drain his very essence. The symptoms began subtly: mild nausea, occasional headaches, and weakness that he attributed to stress. However, as the days went by, what seemed like simple fatigue turned into something much more worrying. The pain intensified. His skin began to lose its vibrancy, and a sickly pallor took over his face. It didn't take long for the city's doctors to become intrigued by what they were up against. The tests did not indicate a clear cause, and conventional treatments had no effect. The idea of poisoning began to circulate among health professionals, but no one dared say it out loud, especially when it came to the pastor, such a respected figure in the community. As Pastor Samuel's health rapidly declined, conversations in the town also began to take a different turn. Evelyn Calloway's name, which was already one of the favorite topics in conversation circles, was now directly associated with the pastor. Rumors of a possible extramarital relationship between the two, which were once just shy whispers, were now openly discussed everywhere, from the market to the barbershop, from the bakery to the church. People who had previously looked at the pastor with reverence now began to view him with suspicion. Doubt corroded the faith of the faithful, and respect for him began to turn into questioning. Why would Evelyn, a married woman, spend so much time with the pastor? Was the question on the minds of the inhabitants of Harmony Springs. And like all rumors, the more it was discussed, the more it gained strength and became distorted, fueling a cycle of suspicion that only increased tension in the city. No one knew for sure what happened behind the scenes, but the flashbacks reveal a more complex truth than the rumors could understand. In discreet meetings, away from the prying eyes of the community, Evelyn and Pastor Samuel met to talk about their respective marriages. He, desperate to save his union with Grace, looked to Evelyn for a listening ear, someone who understood the pain of seeing a relationship fall apart. Evelyn, in turn, felt increasingly suffocated in her marriage to the mayor, a union that, despite appearances, was far from perfect. In these private moments, far from the city's judgments, they comforted each other, creating a bond that, for anyone looking in from the outside, could easily be misinterpreted. They were words of comfort and understanding, but in Little Harmony Springs, where imagination runs wild, These encounters were painted with the colors of betrayal and sin. The city marshal, a shrewd man and personal friend of Mayor Robert Calloway, could not ignore what was happening. Although officially the case was treated as a medical matter, he began to discreetly investigate the situation. The possible connection between the pastor's mysterious illness and his encounters with Evelyn did not escape the police chief's watchful eye. He knew that if there was something more sinister behind the pastor's symptoms, it could shake the city's power structure to its core. So, without arousing suspicion, he began gathering information, speaking to doctors, asking subtle questions to those close to the pastor, and most importantly, watching Evelyn closely. Each new clue he discovered increased his suspicion, but there was still nothing concrete, just a growing shadow of suspicion that hung over everyone involved. As the days passed, the tension in Harmony Springs reached unbearable levels. The news about the supposed connection between Evelyn and the pastor, combined with Samuel's weakened state, spread like wildfire. Mayor Robert, who had always been seen as a firm and respectable leader, now found himself at the center of a hurricane of speculation. His wife, the beautiful and enigmatic Evelyn, became the target of accusatory looks and malicious whispers wherever she went. The mayor's reputation was at stake, and the weight of that was reflected in his grim expression and the deep wrinkles that formed on his forehead. The city, which was once a place of peace and harmony, was now divided. On the one hand, those who believed in the innocence of the pastor and Evelyn, arguing that what was happening between them was just a misinterpreted friendship. On the other, those who were already sure that there was much more than it seemed, who were convinced that the pastor was paying the price for his own sins. And so, Harmony Springs, which had always valued its unity and traditional values, became a silent battleground, where words hurt as deeply as actions. Uncertainty and suspicion cast a shadow over the city, and no one knew how or when this situation would find a resolution. Pastor Samuel's declining health and the suspicions surrounding him are just the beginning of a conflict that promises to shake Harmony Springs to its foundations. As the pastor's illness progresses and rumors intensify, all eyes are on Evelyn and Robert as the deputy continues his silent investigation, searching for a truth that may be even more disturbing than anyone realizes. In a city where secrets don't stay hidden for long, the outcome of this story promises to be as devastating as it is surprising. Harmony Springs would never be the same after what happened that cold fall morning. The sun had barely risen over the horizon when the news spread like lightning through the small town. Pastor Samuel had been found dead in his own home. The tragedy took everyone by surprise, and, in a matter of minutes, the peace that used to reign in Harmony Springs was replaced by a whirlwind of shock, sadness, and, most importantly, speculation. How could such a beloved man, known for his kindness and dedication to the community, come to such an abrupt and tragic end? And even more disturbing, what caused his death? The answer came quickly, but instead of calming tempers, it only served to further stir up the city's curiosity and distrust. The autopsy revealed that Samuel had been poisoned, and in no ordinary way. Traces of a rare poison were found in his system, something that immediately transformed what could have been a natural death into a case of possible homicide. As if that wasn't enough to shake the town to its foundations, an additional detail was discovered. A bottle of wine, a gift from Evelyn Calloway, was found in her home. The poison, according to experts, could have been administered in the drink. The mere fact that this bottle was present at the scene of the death was enough to cast a heavy shadow over the mayor's wife. Mayor Robert Calloway, normally so steadfast and self-assured, seemed to wilt at the revelation. At the pastor's funeral, he was present, but his posture was different from what everyone was used to. The man who always faced challenges with bravery now remained silent, head down, with a face that mixed pain and apprehension. His closeness to Samuel, once a source of pride, now became a burden. He knew people were starting to talk, and the silence he maintained only served to fuel speculation even further. He was shaken, but it was difficult to discern whether his grief came from the loss of a friend or worry about the possible implications for his wife. Evelyn, in turn, was the center of attention from the moment the news of Samuel's passing spread. His reaction was, to say the least, ambiguous. During the wake, she seemed torn between genuine sadness and a nervousness that did not go unnoticed by the attentive eyes of the community. Her trembling hands, the look that avoided direct contact with people, and the fact that, at times, she seemed lost in thought, all of this made many begin to doubt her innocence. How could a woman who had been so close to the pastor not be involved in this in some way? For some, the explanation was too obvious to ignore. Evelyn had something to hide. As the news spread, Little Harmony Springs became a boiling cauldron of gossip and conspiracy theories. Everyone wanted to know the truth, and the pressure on the local police increased every day. The investigation, which had previously been conducted discreetly, now became a public spectacle. Residents demanded answers, and the police chief, realizing that he could no longer keep the case secret, was forced to give statements to the local press. With each new clue discovered, Evelyn's situation became more untenable. The bottle of wine found in the pastor's house was, for many, definitive proof that she was involved. Even those who once defended her began to back away, hesitant to give her the benefit of the doubt. The mayor, who initially tried to protect his wife from the storm of accusations, began to distance himself from her. The public pressure was too much even for him. With each new revelation, each new rumor that emerged, the division within Robert's own household became more evident. Where before there was a united couple, now there were two individuals who barely looked each other in the eye. Evelyn, in turn, felt the weight of the accusations growing every day. She knew that the entire city was against her, that her name was being dragged through the mud, and that at any moment, she could become the main official suspect in the pastor's death. Doubt hung over her head like a falling sword, and there wasn't much she could do to defend herself. Inside the house, things were no better. The environment that was once his refuge had now become a prison. Robert, once so protective, now barely spoke to her. The silence between them was deafening, and Evelyn felt like every day her world was falling apart a little more. In the city, people avoided looking her in the eye. Whispers followed her wherever she went. The woman who was once seen as the symbol of elegance and charm was now the target of all suspicion. The shadow of doubt had turned her life into a constant nightmare, and Evelyn knew that at any moment she could be consumed by it. Pastor Samuel's death was a turning point not just for Evelyn, but for all of Harmony Springs. The peace that once characterized the city has been destroyed, and in its place, only uncertainty and fear remain. The community, which had once united around faith and mutual trust, was now divided, each person fearing what the future would bring. Samuel's case was not just a personal tragedy, but a catalyst that revealed the deep fissures that had always been present but had until now been carefully hidden. What would come next? That was the question that everyone in silence asked themselves, and it seemed the answers would be anything but comforting. The tension inside the Calloway home was palpable, an invisible thread about to snap. The conversation that was about to happen could no longer be postponed, and they both knew it. Robert Calloway, under the weight of recent accusations and the relentless pressure of public opinion, felt trapped. He had always been a man of authority, but at that moment he was vulnerable, hurt. His wife, Evelyn, sitting in front of him, seemed distant, with her gaze fixed on any point, as if trying to escape the reality that surrounded her. The mayor took a deep breath, preparing himself for the confrontation that would change both their fates. "I need to know the truth, Evelyn," Robert began, his voice thick with exhaustion and a hint of desperation. "These rumors, this closeness with Samuel, what is really going on?" His words were a mix of accusation and plea. He wanted to believe in his wife's innocence, but the evidence was against her. Evelyn's silence only intensified his suspicions, and he desperately needed answers. Evelyn looked up slowly, her eyes shining with a mixture of anger and pain. "How can you believe that, Robert? Do you really think I would have anything to do with Samuel's death? He was my friend, that's all. Nothing they say is true." But the firmness of his words failed to dispel the cloud of distrust that hung over them. Robert still felt that something was being hidden, and before he could continue, a knock on the door interrupted the conversation. The deputy entered, holding an envelope in his hands, and his serious expression left no doubt that the news was not good. He placed the envelope on the table and said, "We received this anonymously this morning. These are documents that Samuel was keeping secret. They suggest that he was investigating irregularities at City Hall. Irregularities that could incriminate you, Robert." The revelation fell like a bomb. Robert was in shock, unable to process the information. Documents? An investigation? He looked at Evelyn, who now wore an expression that was a mix of confusion and something he couldn't quite place. "I didn't know any of this, Robert," she said, but her voice was weaker, as if she was beginning to realize the gravity of the situation. The mayor, on the other hand, began to put together the pieces of a puzzle that until then made no sense. If Samuel was investigating the City Hall, this could explain his death. But why? And more importantly, who was behind it? The news quickly spread throughout the city, and Harmony Springs, which was already divided, was now on the brink of chaos. Half of the citizens believed that Evelyn was being unfairly accused, a victim of circumstances and gossip. The other half, however, was convinced that she had a role in Samuel's death, and now, with the new revelations, they were beginning to suspect Robert as well. The town, which was once an example of a close-knit community, was now split in half, with neighbors turning their backs on each other, long-time friendships being destroyed, and an atmosphere of fear and paranoia spreading to every corner. With chaos mounting and pressure unbearable, local officials decided it was time to bring in an outside investigator, someone from outside Little Harmony Springs, someone who could look at the case without the weight of the personal ties that tied everyone in town together. The investigator, a man known for his ability to solve the most complicated cases, began to dig into every detail of the lives of Samuel, Mayor Robert, and, of course, Evelyn. Each discovery was a new layer of mystery that seemed to push away the truth rather than reveal it. It was as if the deeper he dug, the deeper the darkness became. Then a new witness emerged, someone who claimed to have crucial information about Samuel's death and the secret investigation he was leading. This person, whose name was kept confidential for his own safety, was about to reveal everything he knew in a scheduled meeting with the investigator. The city was in suspense, waiting for a resolution, for something that could finally explain what was happening. But, tragically, that revelation never came to pass. The night before the meeting, the witness was found dead under mysterious circumstances. Was it an accident, suicide, or, as many began to believe, yet another murder to cover up the truth? The murder of the witness was the final straw. The tension in the city turned into a palpable, almost tangible fear. Who would be behind all this? Could it be Evelyn, trying to protect herself? Could it be Robert, desperate to save his career and his legacy? Or was there a third person, someone in the shadows, pulling the strings of all these events? The questions were many, and the answers always seemed out of reach. What was certain was that Harmony Springs would never be the same. What was once a quiet and peaceful city was now a place of distrust and uncertainty. The masks had fallen, revealing that beneath the orderly, moralistic surface lay secrets that, once exposed, could destroy everything the residents thought they knew about themselves and each other. The search for the truth, which seemed so simple at first, turned into a maze of lies, where each false step could be the last. Robert and Evelyn, once the city's most influential couple, were now caught in a web they themselves helped weave, a web that could very well end up destroying them. The final confrontation was far from the end. In fact, he was just the beginning of a descent into the abyss where the truth, if it still existed, might never be found. Harmony Springs was on the brink of collapse, and the only thing certain was that nothing would ever be the same again. The unfolding of events in Harmony Springs was as dizzying as it was tragic. Evelyn Calloway, a woman who until recently was considered an icon of elegance and untouchable poise, now found herself in prison, accused of a crime she vehemently denied having committed. Evelyn's arrest was surrounded by controversy and relentless public pressure. Without concrete evidence, but with a mountain of assumptions and suspicions, the police made the decision that the city was crying out for. For many, the arrest seemed like the solution to a mystery that had been eroding the city's peace. For others, it was just a desperate attempt to placate collective hysteria, without the guarantee that the real culprit was behind bars. Evelyn's situation generated even more divisions within the community. Although she was incarcerated, the incessant murmur that something was wrong in this process never stopped. There was something that didn't fit, a missing piece of the puzzle that the citizens of Harmony Springs were putting together in their minds. With each new day, the feeling that the truth was still out of reach grew stronger. Robert Calloway, who tried to maintain the appearance of normality, knew that his wife was being used as a scapegoat, but at the same time, he could not shake the shadows of doubt that were accumulating. The trust that had once united the couple was now in tatters, eroded by the secrets and lies surrounding Samuel's death. The external investigator, brought in to unravel what seemed like an unsolvable enigma, began to realize that the truth was much deeper than what the eyes could see. Documents, calls, testimonials, everything indicated that the story was much bigger and more complicated than a simple crime of passion. After sifting through the clues and piecing together the disconnected dots, he made a revelation that no one expected. Pastor Samuel's poisoning could have been orchestrated by an outsider, someone who had a particular interest in silencing him before he could expose compromising secrets that came to the surface. Perhaps secrets related to the city hall itself. This revelation, instead of bringing relief, threw Harmony Springs into a new spiral of uncertainty. With this new hypothesis in hand and the lack of conclusive evidence against Evelyn, the police were forced to release her. However, his freedom was far from being synonymous with relief. In the small town where words and judgmental looks were as powerful as any sentence, Evelyn carried with her the weight of a suspicion that would never be completely erased. The return home was bitter. Although prison bars no longer surrounded her, distrust and social isolation were invisible but equally suffocating barriers. The relationship with Robert, already fragile, now seemed irreparable. Both were together, but the gulf between them was unbridgeable, made up of unanswered questions and unexpressed hurts. Harmony Springs, the town that once prided itself on its unity and impeccable reputation, was now a place marked by deep scars. The air, which had once been light and inviting, now carried the weight of unresolved secrets and a truth that seemed determined to remain in the shadows. The inhabitants, once confident and proud of their little paradise, now lived in constant fear of what might yet come to light. The death of the pastor, who had once united the city in mourning, was now the dividing line between a past of apparent innocence and a present corroded by doubt and fear. Even with Evelyn's release, Samuel's case was never officially resolved. Theories and suspicions continued to run wild, but with each new attempt to clarify the mystery, everything seemed to become more confusing. The investigation was pushed into oblivion, while new stories emerged and new tragedies took up space in daily conversations. However, what many in Harmony Springs knew but never dared say out loud was that the true reasons behind the pastor's death were so deeply embedded in the fabric of the town that they would never be fully revealed. The mystery remained, like a scar on the city's collective memory, a constant reminder that, behind the impeccable facades and warm smiles, there was a darkness that was never fully dispelled. Evelyn and Robert continued their lives, but what was left of them was just a shadow of what they once were. Daily interactions were short, formal, and the distance between them only increased over time. Evelyn, still haunted by the city's stares and whispers, has withdrawn from public life, preferring isolation to facing the constant judgment of her neighbors. Robert, in turn, continued his work at City Hall, but the trust he once enjoyed with citizens was irreparably compromised. The city, once his ally, was now just a reminder of what he had lost. The mystery surrounding Samuel's death was never fully resolved, but his presence was felt by everyone. Harmony Springs' dark secrets remained buried, but not forgotten. They lived on in the whispers of quiet nights, in the memories of those who still remember the days of uncertainty, and in the wary glances exchanged between citizens who knew that the city's apparent peace was, in fact, just a fragile illusion. The story of Samuel, Evelyn, and Robert has become part of the town's folklore, a constant reminder that no matter how hard one tries to hide the truth, it always finds a way to haunt those who prefer to live in the shadow of lies. Harmony Springs would never be the same, and the secrets that were once so carefully buried would continue to haunt its inhabitants for generations. In Harmony Springs, a town where appearances have always been carefully preserved, Pastor Samuel's death was the trigger that revealed dark depths that many preferred to ignore. Blood Secrets delves into this universe where trust is a precious asset and, when broken, can lead to total ruin. The story is an intricate web of mysteries and revelations, where each character struggles to keep their own secret buried, but ultimately succumbs to the weight of the lies they have constructed over the years. Pastor Samuel was the personification of integrity to the citizens of Harmony Springs, a man whose word carried weight and whose advice was followed with reverence. His death, tragic and unexpected, was a severe blow to the city, but as details of her death came to light, it became clear that behind her flawless figure was more than prying eyes could capture. The poisoning was a spark that lit a fire of mistrust, burning down the peaceful facade the city was so proud to maintain. The story of Blood Secrets is a study in how secrets can corrode the soul of a community. In Harmony Springs, where everyone knows everyone and rumors spread like wildfire, the discovery that Pastor Samuel was involved in a secret investigation involving local power figures left every resident wondering what else was being done. Hidden, doubt has infiltrated every corner of the city, and the pastor's death made it clear that sometimes the truth is more dangerous than any lie. Evelyn Calloway, a woman whose life has always been marked by her beauty and social standing, became the focus of suspicion. Accused, arrested, and then released due to lack of evidence, her reputation would never be the same. What began as whispers on street corners soon turned into a storm of accusations and disapproving looks. Evelyn, who had always been an admired public figure, found herself transformed into an outcast. Even after his release, the shadow of doubt never stopped hanging over his head. His life, once filled with parties and social events, was now lived in the shadows, away from the accusing eyes of his former friends and acquaintances. Mayor Robert Calloway, on the other hand, was forced to face the consequences of the suspicions that fell on his wife. His role in the city was severely shaken, and his position of power that once seemed unshakable was compromised. Although he was never directly accused, the connection with Evelyn and revelations about possible irregularities in his administration forever tarnished his public image. The trust that the citizens of Harmony Springs placed in him was irreparably damaged. Robert, once a safe and confident man, became a dejected figure, always in the shadow of a possible revelation that could destroy everything he had built. The most disturbing thing is that, even with so many lives destroyed, the mystery of Samuel's death remained unsolved. The truth, or what was left of it, was buried beneath layers of secrets and conspiracies. The external investigator brought new theories, new clues, but nothing that could finally close the case. What once seemed like a simple matter of discovering the killer turned into an intricate web of hidden interests and dangerous alliances that went far beyond what anyone could have imagined. And so, the case was slowly put aside, an open wound that would never completely heal. Harmony Springs, once seen as a haven of tranquility, would never recover from the impact of the case. The scars left by the events described in Blood Secrets were deep and indelible. Every corner of the city, every face, every word exchanged was a constant reminder that no one was truly safe. The city that once prided itself on its unity and values was now divided, with citizens living in constant vigilance, always in fear that the next secret to be revealed could be their own. What Blood Secrets shows us is that the truth has a unique way of manifesting itself, even when every effort is made to keep it hidden. In the case of Harmony Springs, the truth came not as an act of justice, but as an icy wind that swept away the lives of everyone involved, leaving destruction in its wake. The lesson is that no matter how hard we try to bury our secrets, they have the power to come back to the surface, bringing with them consequences that can be more devastating than we could ever imagine. The mystery of Pastor Samuel's death may have been officially put to rest, but for the residents of Harmony Springs, he will never be forgotten. Unanswered questions will continue to haunt the town's quiet streets, and the secrets he took to his grave will remain a lingering shadow over the community. Blood Secrets is ultimately a story about the inevitability of truth and the price we pay for trying to hide it. Harmony Springs will never be the same, but perhaps, in some ways, this was a change that was destined to happen from the beginning.